Hey guys, it's Ash from BeingSwenglish. It's quite ironic, isn't it, that when the weather gets really, really good back at home, we all want to go off on holiday. But there are some things to think about, especially in this current climate. And I've just actually booked a holiday and realized quite a few challenges in booking that holiday and things that you should really think about before you book yours. Now, obviously, we are in unprecedented times right now with the whole situation with COVID, and things being very dynamic and changing constantly, the rules, the regulations, what we are allowed to do and not allowed to do. And this could get very expensive for you if you don't think about these really, really important topics first. So let's cover them in this video. So the first one is before you travel. Now, before you travel to most destinations, you're going to need either an antigen test, which is a pretty rapid test to show whether you have COVID or not, or a PCR test. The PCR tends to be more expensive. First of all, check whether your holiday company actually helps subsidize towards the cost of that, because they can be upwards of £150, €150. Luckily, with companies like Ving, they actually subsidize some of it, and so you only end up paying 500 krona, which is about £50, €50. Then there's the problem, what about if it's a positive test result? You can't travel. Who's going to pay for the cost of that? Are you going to be covered from the cost of losing all the money you've just paid on the holiday? You need to check with the holiday company when you book it that you have some form of cancellation cover, because if you don't, and holidays are very expensive right now, you may end up losing all of that money. Now, I've just booked with Ving. They do actually include cancellation and rebooking insurance on all bookings, I believe until October, but certainly check that yours does, because otherwise it could be a very, very expensive cancellation. Now, the other is that before you travel back home, you're probably also going to need another PCR test. They're valid for up to about 72 hours normally by most airlines. And the challenge is, what if you get a positive result when you're abroad? Different scenario really, because you're then in a country that you don't know, with a system that you don't really know or understand, and most likely a different language as well in play. So it can get very, very confusing. The other challenge, of course, is that can you really trust the PCR test in some countries abroad when you know that if you get a positive result, you're going to have to stay there for longer, buy more food, and generally spend more money there. So therefore, you have to be a little bit in two minds as to the accuracy or the legitimacy of some PCR tests abroad. What if you do get a positive test result? You need to make sure that you are covered, because you'll have not just the expense of food and drink, but you'll have to stay there and quarantine. That could be for up to 10 days in some countries, depending on their regulations. That means another 10 hotel nights. It also means a loss of earnings in your home country, Sweden, or wherever you're from as well. So lots of potential expense, and you need to make sure that you're covered for that. Now, I've just spoken to my travel insurance company. I'm with Länsförsäkringar. That's my home insurance. And in Sweden, most home insurance policies come with travel insurance as well. I actually just checked with them to see that if I get a positive PCR test result abroad, what happens? Who covers the cost that I've then got to stay there longer and spend money on accommodation? Interestingly, they don't cover it. So before we fly back from our up and coming holiday next week, if I get a positive PCR test before I fly home, I now know that I've got to foot the bill for staying in that resort for another potentially 10 days. There is the other concern as well. Some PCR tests can show a positive result even if you don't have COVID, but you've had it in the last 90 days. So it's all a little bit of worry and concern. Actually, it's not a little bit, it's quite a lot of worry and concern about potentially a lot of cost and expense up and coming. Now, one thing that you can do just to try and ease your concerns and worries is to try and speak to people that have just returned from either the country that you're going to or with the tour operator that you're booking the holiday with. That will help to at least understand how the process went for them, whether it's challenging, a little bit scammy, or perfectly fine. But it's better to just do that due diligence before you travel, just to make sure that you know what you might have to expect. I remember a holiday some time ago. We were in Thailand traveling to Cambodia over the border on foot, and we were warned of a scam. In fact, I did some Googling and some research, and I read about a scam whereby you're in a minibus, they stop at a little cafe and say, oh, you need to stop here and get a visa check. Luckily, we knew about this scam, but no one else on the minibus did. And we stayed on that minibus and demanded to be taken to our end destination, Everybody else thought it was legitimate, and so they stayed on the bus and then had to pay a fee to get released from the cafe on the basis of this fake visa claim. So it's always good to know what you might expect and to know about any potential scams before you travel so that you can be wise and avoid them. Now, the next one is regarding face coverings, and it's definitely worth checking whether the destination that you're traveling to requires face coverings or not. There's a real mixed opinion from experts as to whether they really do help or actually hinder the progress of COVID. And in fact, to be honest, wandering around this country, Sweden, for the last 6 months, I'm really yet to see anybody using a mask properly. And that can be actually more dangerous than positive. But the last thing you want to be doing is lounging around a swimming pool on holiday, sipping cocktails whilst wearing a mask. So check whether the destination you're flying to has mandatory face coverings or not. And if they are mandatory, maybe you want to find another destination, because it's not really going to be much of a holiday in 30 degrees of heat wearing a face mask around your face all day. But without question, the most important thing is to have a good time and to have a break on holiday. Currently climbing up a hill, I might fall over in a minute, and just to get away and really well and truly relax, because with all this going on over the last few years, you probably really deserve it. So have a good break, relax, and really enjoy. Hopefully this video is useful. Comment below with your thoughts. And if you've just traveled somewhere or returned from somewhere, I'd love to hear about it. Let us know in the comments below. Thanks very much for watching, guys. Give the video a thumbs up and hit subscribe if you enjoy this content. Cheers.